Hello, and welcome to an adventure like no other. Far more than what you have known, there is something far more to be known than you can ever know. And it is all about you, the real you, your real awareness with your intuitive senses. You were never taught that the real you, your real awareness, is operating 5 bodies in cause and effect, restricting creation. You have been taught to think that you are only a one-dimensional human person, with a mind and emotions, and with a very short lifespan on this planet Earth. More than what your mind can grasp is your intuitive senses that can be opened to see beyond all your restrictions. You have always had an opening to see beyond what you have known, and this has been purposely kept from you, and this is where you have heard rumors and stories about your nightly dreams. Your so-called dreams is your opening to your intuitive senses that will allow you, the personal you, to excel beyond what you have previously known. Everyone has intuitive senses, and very few people take advantage of what is possible by recognizing something more than their mind can understand. Creation has its place for all of us, and then there is all life, which is far more than anything than what can become with creation. Everything we experience is necessary for us to survive with whatever we choose and decide our life to be. New Kevin Smith is the great witness to something more than what can be taught and learned in any school. It can be so that when anyone first listens to Kevin's intuitive side experiences, also known as real side experiences, from what their personal mind has known, Kevin's manner of expression will at first be rather different to comprehend. This is where this introduction and reading the new books and Facebook groups will help. Have fun deciding. Duane the Great Writer and Seer.
Through the ongoing efforts of all those who have embraced their awareness of processes, as the idea is to be as the isness is, a reality that we all actually are, as a constant demonstration of the essence of the true reality, that of a support for all awareness that is a part of all life, and that as we support and promote the all is, as we are in actuality then supporting ourselves, this then is the reflective, everything equals itself principle in action, that we are then supported and our awareness in relation to the true reality becomes more so. That the purpose of the created simulators is as a comparative mechanism by which the is can be recognized, and as the true reality and its sound connection, the new you, is promoted throughout multi-dimensional creation. At this moment, vast numbers of body types are receptive, stepping up and stepping into the true reality of themselves, the real awareness, and aligning intent through the personal self with the recognition of the is, that being the real intent. This then has the effect of breaking up the rigidity of the overall consciousness, that as part of the process of awareness is the facing and releasing attachment to the consciousness, that unshackles the limitation and restriction it imposes upon all who do cling to it, and reflected then as the simulator is the consciousness effected, will the simulator's deterioration cycle be offset and potentially even reversed. Everything creationally occurring is based on agreement, and so ultimately we cannot force a consciousness shift. Through the promoting of the new you and the is pertaining references, we can realistically only present the true reality, and it is up to every individual to then decide and place their intent and agreements accordingly. And as the real purpose of is recognition becomes more so throughout creation, as intent and agreement is placed in accordance, so this will effect as the overall consciousness becoming gradually released, its density and distortion diminished, and as the overall consciousness is the simulator affected, this in turn can delay, offset the simulator deterioration, or even throw it into reverse potentially, as I said. This becomes then a simulator more conducive for an awareness process, a process that requires the unreality of creation as the comparative means by which the true reality is recognized, and far easier would this be in a simulator that isn't in a state of decay, that more time so-called is afforded, and additionally, as the limitations and restrictions of consciousness are released, so affected are better simulator circumstances for all, again far easier to learn one's lessons when the classroom isn't on fire. The new friends, Duane and the guides, can only operate within the agreement parameters as set through the consciousness personal selves of all, as we each are the deciders of our experience and positioning in life, but with the great wake-up continuing to gather momentum, so is agreement then extended in regards to what would include a consciousness overhaul that facilitates a better an awareness process, being gradually embraced by ever-increasing numbers of simulator dwellers. And the effects then of these idea agreements can be managed by the guides, Duane and the new friends, where accelerated can be this consciousness overhaul that is beneficial life and awareness speaking, by whatever means this can be accomplished. Really, as it is decided through a consciousness, so it is every individual who places agreement that is effecting that which is reflected from it, but we can utilize the agreements as roles we now can step into, and in regards to the consciousness, we can reformat, restructure, and speed up this overhaul of it. This has been another theme of real side experiences of late, as shared by myself and others, where we are performing this very action as made possible through progressively increasing agreements in overall consciousness, through an awareness process embraced ever more so throughout creation. And such a consciousness reformatting has been achieved through the real awareness with its oversight and unlimited ability where creation is concerned, and even through technological means. For the simulators and the consciousness that affects them are based on cause and effect, data in to simulation out, computer-like principles, and where through the application of technology is it possible to accelerate also the overall consciousness shake-up, just as we might reformat a computer. And I shared recently how various advanced scientists operating other dimensionally have been involved with this very activity, and where I would be assisting them in their endeavors, etc. This real side experience would be a similar effort that, although was virtually devoid of simulated visuals, that it was almost entirely real awareness afforded impressions, I would again be involved in utilizing agreements as provided via overall consciousness, that the consciousness could be accelerated still further in regards to breaking up its density of restricted distortion. Visually, all that would be revealed were a series of advanced high-tech labs that I would be operating within. Present with me would be Duane, and the nature of our activities would be, as I said, acceleration of the consciousness overhaul. If Duane and I were actually doing this through the application of advanced technology, that we were literally accessing the overall consciousness as though it were a computer and effecting our alterations, made possible via consciousness agreement which permitted us this ability, or if this was more symbolically revealing that which was our objective wasn't made apparent, but these were nonetheless the visuals, and with the impressions revealing the nature of our activities, with what would be a continuous effort that spanned almost the entirety of that night of my real side experience. Rather than brief in regards to what I can visually convey, but the implications were massive in regards to what Duane and I were accomplishing, as we set about accelerating the breaking up of the compacted density of the overall consciousness. At one point, however, further visuals would be apparent, that of our science labs being attacked by hordes of dark force agents. For the consciousness, as it has been reptilian structured for the longest time, has been programmed to effect the overall simulator as the dark forces would desire, that they are afforded their controlling positions. That should such a consciousness begin to fragment and release all agreements, and including those pertaining to the dark forces that prop up their control structures, naturally will the dark forces be motivated to prevent by whatever means possible, in reality where agreements allow that they can, any individual operating in any capacity that is impacting the consciousness in ways that effect as an undermining of their control. And this would be the case here. Duane and I were constant in our consciousness overhaul endeavours, and as such was the expected antagonistic reaction of those that wish the consciousness to remain as it has for so very long. And if it was literal a situation, that of our consciousness reformatting labs being attacked, or simply this was the visual representation of our consciousness overhauling actions meeting resistance, Duane and I would not only repel the assault of an endless surge of dark force body types and agents, but effectively protect our lab-based operation. In other words, we harboured no agreements in relation to our assailants that allowed them ability to harm or eliminate us. Absent of the idea, no simulation can follow, and despite their best efforts then, they would seemingly just bounce off us, as though unable to have any bearing on our forms. They were unable to impact our operation either, and as the scene began to fade, the final afforded visual would be Duane and I proceeding with our consciousness overhaul as the dark force creatures flailed, thrashed, and continued in their fruitless efforts to impact us adversely or to have any bearing on our operation. In a final and unrelated scene, I would find myself positioned on the grounds of my former place of work, a supermarket called Tesco's, and impressions revealed I was ensuring the severing of all agreements in relation to the idea of it and all associated individuals that were my former work colleagues, managers, etc. For everything we experience in creation, including the body forms of others, are ideas we have agreed to that effect them into our simulated reality. and as we go through lifetimes, all the ideas which affected all the situations that they did and the individuals featuring will be retained, like a huge ever-expanding in volume data file, and when we begin our processes of awareness, so we now will be facing and releasing every idea the entirety of the consciousness comprises of, that liberation from their effects and creation is made possible. And here it seemed I had a few more idea agreements in relation to my former work position to release, for as we go about such a process, we will invariably effect a simulation on the real side of the situations and lifetimes where agreements pertaining to them were forged, and the releasing of the agreements will visually express whatever way they might. In this case, I was engaging with my former manager as the focal point and overall representation of the agreement in regards to my former place of work, but it was as though the agreement was rather convoluted. For often times in the current lifetime, we are only experiencing the latest effect of an idea that may be rooted many lifetimes previously and may consist of many branches, many ideas in association. That as we go about our process of awareness, we rather need dismantle the entire idea tree, the branches, the trunk, and finally to the roots, where the idea agreement was initially secured. And really then, the idea of work may have been installed as agreement, who knows how many lifetimes previously, and my current lifetime as a shop assistant had been its most recent expression. Nothing's negated in creation. We do what we must to survive in a world based on a monetary system, but the idea here is that we are releasing the agreements. We are not clinging to the ideas of them and maintaining ourselves as their projected effects into future lifetimes. And the convoluted, deep-rooted nature of the idea of work, one I have addressed before and shared on previous real-side experiences, although seemingly my releasing of its entirety wasn't complete, hence this experience, had me repeatedly engaging with my former manager as though replaying the scene, but additionally I would be assuming different forms each time around, and with each engagement and interaction words were exchanged, though these are rather irrelevant in the face of the actuality of what was taking place, agreement releasing, and I didn't recall them on waking. Each time I repeated my engaging with the manager, so the sense of it was different, as though lighter each time around, as the overall agreement became lessened, ever more so insubstantial. Just as I was completing my final round, so to speak, none other than a Kelsey would materialize on the scene, and began to bombard me with accusations of insincerity and skullduggery through my ongoing association with the new presentation, as seems to be her current objective. I would stand and depart from the immediate scene, that of the former workplace and my manager, rather disregarding Kelsey. Interestingly, she had put on a considerable amount of weight in comparison to how I saw her last, where she stormed from the ranch. On the real side, the assumption of more weight tends to represent the loading up of additional ideas, and as generally being overweight and increasingly so wouldn't be construed as the best health-orientated practice, Quite clearly here, the ideas Kelsey now was embracing were not especially healthy in regards to her awareness. An awareness process she has now abandoned and is content to become overburdened, overweight with all the created idea attitudes, considerations, assumptions, and convictions of the personal self. She would suddenly be joined by a group of men that, although their appearances were unfamiliar to my personal self, their race would be afforded via impressions that they were Mexicans. Seduced by Kelsey, and under her bewitching spell, as she seems to have quite the manipulative ability, so they would attempt to assail me at her command. But as is always the case, the effectiveness of our attackers is reliant on agreements we have in relation to them. That I lacked agreements which assured their success, so this would express as their inability to bestow harm upon me, and I would effortlessly repel their enthusiastic efforts, as they flailed at me with fists and weaponry, clubs and blades, as I hurled their bodies in every direction, and as they relented, so I would proceed onward, with the Kelsey watching, her rather plump face a mask of abject rage and disdain.